Hello and welcome to episode 3 of my landscape photography vlog. Today I'm doing something slightly different. I'm heading inland to a location called Rough Tor. It's spelt rough as in the opposite of smooth, but pronounced row. I checked with my Cornish friends, and I'm going to look for some contrast, some rock formations, and maybe some lines of sight. Now, I've packed a little bit lighter today because the weather's not so good, so I don't want to be caught out hiking with 30 kilograms of kit on my back. So I'm going wide angle and mid-range primes only. Just see how it works out for me.
So I was driving through this fog and it was getting thicker and thicker as I drove inland. I was worried that I was going to get slammed by some bad weather, but as it turns out, it cleared up by midday, just as the weather forecast said. So I haven't walked very far. I'm only about 300 metres from the car. And I've just met these two pretty bedraggled looking horses. Now they're quite close to a gate, so I don't know where they're meant to be. But they're on a huge expanse of land. I mean, they could walk probably 3 miles in any direction and not leave the enclosed area they're in. I kind of wish that I'd bought the 70 to 200 because I don't want to get too close, but I want to get some of the detail in their faces. So, first picture, I've got this horse here. You're probably thinking, what's he doing? He's meant to be a landscape photographer, he's taking pictures of animals. Well, I do think this horse is particularly expressive. He does look a little bit sad and bedraggled. I like the tones of the kind of the browns and oranges of the landscape set against the white of the horse. And I think it really sets the mood for the moors. They're a bit barren and desolate, and the horse shows that he's been through that. Just setting up a shot from this summit I'm standing on across to the other summit, which is just being brushed by the sun now, so I've got to be fairly quick. The exposure difference between the sky and the foreground is probably about 6 or 7 stops, because I'm in the shade and the hill I'm pointing at is very well illuminated. So I'm going to use a circular polarizer to cut out a bit of the glare in the sky, but I'm also going to have to take 2 exposures and later blend them together. Okay, I've got some nice sunlight now, so I'm going to try and get this shot off in the next couple of seconds. Got my histogram on the screen. I'm seeing a little bit of highlight clipping. Yeah, there is a little bit of highlight clipping towards the left of the scene, but I don't mind too much. I like this scene. I like the contrast in the sky. I've used my polarizing filter to sort of bring out the darkness in the area of blue sky, or rather black sky as it appears in this image. These rock formations are bizarre. I mean, they're not man-made, but they do look as if they've been stacked atop one another. I think the wind does it, to be honest, because I can't think of any other explanation. The foreground of this image and the rock formation are so calm and sort of timeless, but the sky is just crazy. It's a nice balance between the rock formations that have been there for thousands of years and the sky that will only be like that for another hour or so. It really gives a kind of vibrance to the image. Now, I know it's quite a cliche shot, but I just found this little lake and I'm on a saddle fairly high up. So
So what I'm going to do is take a quick shot, handheld, no tripod, chuck this in the foreground and try and get some interest in the clouds above me.
Ah, the lake. I like this. It is very cliche. The colours look absurd, and I know it looks like I've just whacked up the saturation slider. I haven't. It really was this bright. I don't know if you guys are familiar with slide films. The most famous one I know is Fuji Velvia. This really reminds me of that. It's just throwing orange and blue at you. I like the bit of sky that's reflected in the water, because it gives that pondy blueness a nicer hue. I mean, I think it was quite brown, manky bog water, but a little bit of blue makes it seem a little bit more pleasant. There's no audio for this bit because I was perched on a rock 10 to 15 feet away from the video camera. This was an interesting area because these rocks were enormous, but to get the angle I wanted and to get the elevation I needed to shoot across at the rock formations rather than down onto them, I had to be on this boulder, and I was actually above a group of hikers who were down below being like, what's this guy doing above us with his tripods out? This next shot was kind of a forced perspective because it's the only angle I could really shoot it from. The choice I had was to go high or to go low, and to shoot up at it would absolutely remove the kind of the landscape in the background. You'll see in this next image that I shoot the rock formations, and there's actually a bit of the rock to my right included in the frame as a foreground element, and then it just drops off and extends for miles. I mean, you can see all the way to the sea. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it in the YouTube compression. Let's have a look at the picture. Here you go. You see what I mean? That saddle in the background past the rock structures, it just wouldn't be in the image if I'd shot from below. I managed to get high enough to show the horizon way out, and that's probably halfway towards Land's End. I mean, they say you can see a fair amount of Cornwall from the top of these peaks. I could definitely see the sea towards the right of the image. Again, I've got a big, angry sky, and I've got enough contrast and detail in the rocks to make a good foreground.
So I've been up here for maybe about 15-20 minutes now. What I'm going to do is take the camera off the tripod. I'm going to pack up and get ready to head back down. But as I walk back this way, because I've got the sun coming from behind me, I'm going to take a few more shots of the rock formations, because where I was shooting from before, I was given silhouettes, whereas now I can get all of the fine detail.
I like this image so much more than the second image I showed you of the silhouetted rock. I like that the sun's hitting it straight on. I like the foreground of the kind of scrubs and bushes. I feel this has got a strange sort of American sense to it, like kind of Monument Valley. It's probably the windswept rocks that give it that desert vibe. Also worth noting, this image is the only one I think I took that didn't have any clouds in the sky. And I think the clean, the neat top of the image really contrasts with the wild arrangement of scrubs and bushes in the foreground. I don't know why, but I feel that if there was a single cloud there, it would ruin the image in some way.
Okay, so that's where I was a few minutes ago. I'm walking down now, and I've just looked back and seen that now the sun's moved on a bit. I have a chance to take an exposure with detail in the foreground as well as the sky. I've set up near these two rocks in the foreground, so I'm planning to use them to slowly lead in to Rough Tor in the background. So a good trick if you don't have your shutter release cable to hand Set your camera to self-timer, set your delay to 2 seconds and your shots to 1. And this time, I press my shutter release, take my hands off the camera, and it's just taken the shot for me.
I'm not such a fan of this one, but I included it because you'd seen me take the picture. I'd recorded myself taking it, so I kind of wanted to show you an attempt and a concept which I had but didn't work out quite as planned. Now I have got that lead in from the foreground, and there is some texture and there's lichens and mosses on the rocks, but they just don't quite give enough interest to the image. It kind of looks like a frame missing its subject. I don't know if the hill is the subject, the first rock is the subject, the second rock. I like the colour palette, but then that's just the area I was in. I could have taken a picture of maybe a horse posing near the rocks, a horse further up. Anything would have given it a little bit more punch, but as it stands, I don't think this image really holds up to the rest of them.
So I'm back from my expedition up to the top of Rough Tor, and I'm just having a quick look at my OS map. The reservoir I could see to my right is only a couple of kilometers back up the road I drove down, then right. So what I think I'm going to do is head back towards that, and then I can see a path in the woods. It's called Davidstow Woods. So I drive to the reservoir, have a quick look, and if that's no good, I'll give the woods a quick go. To be honest, I need a very specific sun direction because the sun is so low in the sky now that the woods are going to be very dark unless it's shining in line with a gap in the trees. So I'll see what I can find. So I got this field of sheep to my left, and I want to cross over the field so that I can get to the shore of the lake. I got some more sheep to my right, but I'm not too worried about them. What I'm going to do is climb over the fence and try and walk as slowly as I can, but they do seem very curious about me. What I think it is that I think that the farmer who owns these sheep might drive a Land Rover, and I think they think that I have some kind of food on me. Hopefully I don't get mobbed. So I've come to my last location, and it's the lake that I could see earlier from the top of Rough Tor. I got a beautiful view out over the water. I've got the gold in this moorland to the left, and it's broken up by the darker tones in the trees. I've got a copse off to my left. There's actually just a bloke walking his dog there, so I'm going to take this shot first. What I'm going to do is set up, take a wide image. I might even use the 16mm lens just to get as wide a view of this beach as I can.
So this is my first shot of the lake, and it's another long exposure. And I'm not quite sure I like how this one came out. What I was going for was very geometric blocks of colour. I wanted the blue of the lake, and then I wanted a very rectangular, narrow strip of the gold bank on the other side. And I don't know, because you look at it from far away and it kind of works, but as you peer in, that line not being straight, the way it very slightly curves up towards the right of the frame, just doesn't quite sell it to me. The sky as well, where it meets the blue, so you get that haze and then you get that blue bar at the top. If that was a little bit neater, I think I'd prefer the image. In a second, I take another shot of the lake and I put something in the foreground, and I think it's a significantly better image, so I'll show you that in just a few seconds.
So unfortunately the battery in the D810 has just died, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the battery out of this camera. Unfortunately that means no more video, but it does mean I get to take a few more pictures.
So I think it was worth cannibalising the battery out of my video camera. This shot was taken about half an hour, maybe 40 minutes later, and the sun's actually set, which gives it that blue to a twilight feel. I'd moved up the bank of the lake a bit, and you can see some of the bank towards the left of the horizon is the previous gold bank from the last image. But on the right, I've introduced this sort of, I mean, I think it's a tree farm, a sort of grown toward a forest. And it's got that lovely cloud just lurking over it. It gives it a little bit more of a tranquil, calm feel. I mean, I think that this image is without a doubt stronger than the previous lake shot.